What would you do if the people you sacrificed everything for looked at you like you were nothing? If your own mother pulled food away from your hands? If your sister, the one you went to prison for, said I never asked you to? I'm Daniel. And this is the true story of how rejection saved my life. Stay with me, because what happens next will change how you see pain forever. Welcome to Reality Stories Hub. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Before we begin, I want you to know this is a true story about sacrifice, betrayal, and the strength it takes to stand up when everyone pushes you down. If this story touches your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything. My name is Daniel. 3 years ago, I made a choice that changed my life forever. I gave up everything to protect someone I loved. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought family meant loyalty. I was wrong about so many things. But I was right about one thing: I was stronger than I ever knew. Let me take you back to the day I walked out of prison. Imagine standing behind steel gates for 3 years, counting every sunrise, every sunset, holding on to one single hope that when those gates finally open, the people you sacrificed for would be waiting with open arms. The morning I was released, the sun hurt my eyes. Not because it was too bright, but because I'd forgotten what freedom looked like. I carried a plastic bag with everything I owned: 2 worn shirts, a notebook where I'd written letters I never sent, and hope. So much hope. My family was supposed to pick me up. My mother, Patricia. My father, Leonard. And my younger sister, Natalie. Sweet Natalie. She was only 17 when it happened, when she made a mistake that could have destroyed her future. So I took the fall. I confessed to something I didn't do because that's what brothers do, right? We protect our sisters. I stood outside those prison walls, and my heart was beating so fast. Not from fear, but from excitement. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of dreaming about this moment. I saw our old car approaching, rust eating away at the blue paint. I smiled so wide my face hurt. But when I opened that car door, the cold hit me harder than any winter wind. "Hello," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "I'm home." Nobody looked at me. My mother, Patricia, stared straight ahead like I was invisible. My father, Leonard, gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. And Natalie, my baby sister, the one I'd sacrificed everything for, she turned her face to the window like I was a stranger. The car started moving before I even sat down properly. "So," I tried again, forcing cheerfulness into my voice, "it's good to be out. I missed you all so much." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. We drove through streets I used to know. Past the park where Natalie and I used to play. Past the church where we went every Sunday. Everything looked the same, but everything felt different. Smaller. Colder. When we reached our house in the countryside outside Manchester, my father parked without saying a word. My mother stepped out quickly. Natalie practically ran to the front door. "Wait," I called out, my voice breaking. "Can we please just talk?" My mother finally turned around. Her eyes, once so warm, looked at me like I was something dirty she'd stepped in. "Talk about what?" she said, her voice like ice. "I did what you asked," I said quietly. "I protected her. I protected Natalie." My father laughed. Not a happy laugh. A bitter, angry sound that cut through me. "Protected her," he spat. "You destroyed this family." I couldn't breathe. Destroyed. I went to prison for her. "And now everyone knows," my mother snapped. "Our neighbors whisper. At church, people avoid us. They say we raised a criminal." "But I took the blame," I said, my voice rising with desperation. "For Natalie. So she could have a future." For the first time, Natalie spoke. Her voice was quiet but sharp, like a knife you don't see coming. "I never asked you to." Those 5 words broke something inside me that even prison couldn't break. "You cried," I reminded her, my voice shaking. "That night, you begged me. You said your life would be over." "I was scared," Natalie said, looking at the ground. "I was young. And now?" I asked. Now you're a reminder of our shame, my father said flatly. A disgrace. Disgrace. That word echoed in my head like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. I stood there in our front yard, the same yard where I'd learned to ride a bike, where we'd had birthday parties, where I'd played with Natalie when she was small. Now I stood there like a stranger, like someone who didn't belong. They walked into the house without me. Just walked away. Left me standing there with my plastic bag and my broken heart. That night, I didn't sleep in my old room. I slept on the floor in the storage shed. No mattress. No blanket. Just cold concrete and memories that hurt more than any prison bed. In prison, at least I knew where I stood. At least I had a purpose. I was counting down days until I could come home. Now I was home, and I'd never felt more lost. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen. My mother was making breakfast. The smell of eggs and toast made my stomach growl. I hadn't eaten since the day before. Good morning, I said softly. She placed a plate on the table. I reached for it, hungry, hopeful. She pulled it away. That's for Natalie, she said without looking at me. Can I have something? I asked. I'm hungry. My father looked up from his newspaper. His eyes were cold, so cold. You should leave, he said simply. Soon. Leave. I repeated. This is my home. You've brought enough shame to this house, my mother said. We need peace. I started laughing then. Not because anything was funny, but because it hurt so much I didn't know what else to do. So my punishment didn't end in prison. I asked. It followed me home. You chose this, my mother said, her voice hard. I chose family, I replied. Natalie stood in the doorway, watching. Her hands were shaking, but she said nothing. Did nothing. I picked up my plastic bag. No one will hire you, my mother called after me. Everyone knows you're an ex-convict. I stopped at the door and turned around one last time. Then I'll create my own future, I said. Watch me. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody said goodbye. Nobody said they loved me. I walked out of that house and down that long country road, and I didn't look back. Have you ever felt so alone that even your own shadow seems to walk away from you? That's how I felt walking down that road with nothing but a plastic bag and a heart full of pain. I walked for hours. Past fields I used to know, past the old bus stop where I'd waited for school, past the pub where my father used to take me for Sunday lunch. Everything looked the same, but I was different. Prison had changed me. But rejection was breaking me. By evening, I reached the outskirts of Manchester. The city lights started appearing, bright and cold. I had no money for a hotel. No friends to call. Everyone I knew had disappeared when I went to prison. That's what happens when you're labeled a criminal. People forget you existed. I found a bench near a closed supermarket. That's where I met him. An old man with kind eyes and worn clothes. His name was Thomas, and he was feeding pigeons from a paper bag. You look like someone who's lost more than just their way, Thomas said, not looking at me. I didn't answer at first. What could I say? I lost my family, I finally admitted. Thomas nodded slowly, like he understood everything without me explaining. Sometimes, he said, the people we lose aren't worth finding again. Sometimes loss is just freedom wearing a disguise. This doesn't feel like freedom, I said bitterly. It never does at first, Thomas replied. But give it time. That night, I slept on that bench. It was cold. I was hungry. But something inside me hardened. I made myself a promise right there under those stars. I would never beg. Not for love. Not for acceptance. Not for anything. The next morning, I washed my face in a public restroom. I looked in the mirror. My eyes had dark circles. My clothes were wrinkled. But I was still here. Still breathing. Still standing. I walked until I found a construction site. Men were carrying bricks, mixing cement, building something from nothing. That's what I needed to do. Build something from nothing. You hiring? I asked the foreman, a big man with sunburned skin and calloused hands. Ever done construction? He asked, looking me up and down. I can learn, I said. I'm a fast learner. He shrugged. Pay is minimum wage. Work is hard. I'll take it. He handed me gloves and pointed to a pile of bricks. Start there. My first day, my back screamed in pain. My hands blistered. My arms felt like they'd fall off. But I didn't complain. I didn't stop. While other workers took breaks, I kept working. While they joked and laughed, I lifted and carried. The foreman noticed. His name was George, and after a week, he approached me. You work like a man running from demons, he said. I'm running toward something, I corrected him. What's that? Proof, I said. Proof that I'm more than what they said I was. George studied me for a moment, then nodded. Tomorrow, come early. I've got something better for you. That something better was learning actual skills. Carpentry, plumbing, electrical work. George taught me everything. Not because he was kind, but because I earned it. I showed up early, stayed late, never complained, never made excuses. Weeks turned into months. I rented a tiny room in a shared house. It had a single bed, a broken window, and walls so thin I could hear everything. But it was mine. My space. My start. I kept a notebook, just like in prison. But now I wasn't writing letters to a family that didn't want me. I was writing goals. Small ones at first. Save £50. Buy work boots. Learn how to read blueprints. Every night, I crossed off what I'd accomplished. Every morning, I added new goals. Thomas visited me sometimes at the construction site. He'd bring tea and we'd talk during lunch breaks. You're changing, he observed one day. I have to, I said. Nobody's coming to save me. Thomas smiled, his wrinkled face crinkling. Good. That means you'll make it. The men who wait for rescue die waiting. The men who save themselves become unstoppable. I thought about that a lot. Unstoppable. Could I really become that? One day, a woman hired us to renovate her cafe. Her name was Isabella, and she was tough but fair. She watched me work with curiosity. You work different from the others, she said. Like every nail matters. Every nail does matter, I replied. If you do sloppy work, everything falls apart. She liked that. When the job finished, she asked George about me. That one's different, George told her. He's got something to prove. Word started spreading. If you want quality work, hire Daniel. It wasn't much, but it was something. My reputation was becoming my currency. 6 months after leaving home, I got my first solo job. A small repair job, fixing someone's fence. It paid barely anything, but it was mine. My responsibility. My work. When I finished and the client paid me, I stood there holding those bills like they were made of gold. This is real, I whispered to myself. This is mine. That night, I bought real food. Not just bread and cheap pasta, but meat and vegetables. I cooked in the shared kitchen while my housemates watched television. I ate slowly, tasting every bite. After dinner, I opened my notebook and wrote, "Today I became my own boss." I didn't know it then, but that was the turning point. That was the moment the broken pieces of me started forming something new. Something stronger. Thomas found me that evening, sitting on the front steps of my building. "You're smiling," he said. "I did my first independent job today," I told him. And I realized something, I said. My family called me a disgrace. They said I'd ruined everything. But you know what? They were wrong. I'm not a disgrace. I'm a survivor. And survivors don't stay down. Thomas sat beside me, silent for a moment. "Your family didn't deserve your sacrifice," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "But I'm glad I made it anyway." Why? Because it taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. It taught me that I don't need their approval to have value. I don't need their love to be worthy of love. Thomas patted my shoulder. "You're going to be just fine, Daniel." As he walked away, I looked up at the sky. Stars were appearing, one by one, piercing through the darkness. I'm going to be more than fine, I said to the night. I'm going to be extraordinary. Have you ever noticed how the world treats you differently when you start treating yourself with respect? That's what I discovered in my second year of freedom. When I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as a builder, everything changed. My reputation grew faster than my bank account, but both were growing. People started asking for me specifically. Get Daniel, they'd say. He does it right the first time. I saved every penny I could. While other workers spent their wages on drinks and entertainment, I lived on basics. My tiny room remained my castle. My simple meals remained my feast. Because I was saving for something bigger. George noticed my discipline. One day, after I'd been with him for over a year, he called me into his office. Sit down, he said. I sat, worried I'd done something wrong. I'm getting old, George said. My back hurts. My knees hurt. Everything hurts. He laughed, but it was tired. I'm thinking of slowing down. Smaller jobs. Less stress. That makes sense, I said, not sure where this was going. I want to recommend you for the bigger contracts, he said. But you'll need to go independent. Get licensed. Start your own operation. My heart raced. My own business. Why not? You're ready. You're reliable. You're honest. That's rare in this business. I don't have enough money for equipment, insurance, all of that, I said. George slid a paper across his desk. I'll co-sign a small business loan. Pay me back when you can. No interest. I stared at him, speechless. Why would you do this for me? I asked. Because someone did it for me once, George said simply. And because I see what you're made of. Prison didn't break you. Your family's rejection didn't break you. Nothing's going to break you. I left his office with tears in my eyes. Not from sadness, but from something I hadn't felt in so long, hope. Real hope. Within 3 months, I had it all official. Business license. Insurance. Basic equipment. I called my company Phoenix Rising. Because I'd risen from ashes. My first real contract was renovating a small restaurant. The owner, a middle-aged man named Peter, was skeptical at first. You're young, he said. And you're new. I'm hungry, I corrected him. Hungry people work harder than comfortable people. Give me a chance. If I fail, you don't pay. He raised his eyebrows. You're that confident. I'm that determined, I said. He hired me. I worked 16-hour days on that restaurant. Every tile perfect. Every wall straight. Every detail exact. When I finished, Peter walked through with tears in his eyes. This is beautiful, he whispered. Better than I imagined. He paid me in full and gave me a bonus. But more importantly, he gave me a recommendation. Then another. Then another. By my 3rd year out of prison, Phoenix Rising had 4 employees. Not many, but they were good people. I taught them the same way George taught me, with patience, with standards, with respect. One of my workers, a young guy named James, asked me one day, "Boss, why do you push us so hard?" Because average work creates average lives, I said. I refuse to be average. And if you work for me, you won't be either. I still lived simply. Still saved aggressively. But now I was saving for something specific. Land. A place of my own. Not just a room. Not just a building. But earth with my name on it. Thomas was getting older. His visits became less frequent, but when he came, his wisdom was sharper than ever. You've become someone, he said one afternoon. I've become myself, I corrected. Finally. Do you think about them? He asked. Your family. I was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. Late at night, I wonder if they know what I've built. If they regret what they said. But then morning comes, and I realize I don't actually care anymore. That's growth, Thomas said. Real growth isn't forgiving people who hurt you. It's becoming so complete that their absence doesn't create holes anymore. Those words stayed with me. One evening, I was closing up the worksite when I saw her. Natalie. My sister. She was standing across the street, just watching. Our eyes met. She looked older. Tired. Uncertain. She crossed the street slowly. Daniel. Natalie. I said neutrally. I heard about your company, she said. People talk about Phoenix Rising. I didn't believe it was you until I saw the registration. Your name. It's me, I confirmed. You look different, she said. I'm different. Silence stretched between us like a bridge that had collapsed years ago. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. For everything. For that night. For not defending you when you came home. For being a coward. I looked at her. Really looked at her. I saw regret in her eyes. Genuine regret. But I also saw something else. She wanted forgiveness to make herself feel better, not to make things right. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully. Can we try again? Be family again? She asked hopefully. I shook my head slowly. Natalie, I forgave you a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back. But I'm your sister, she said, her voice breaking. You were my sister, I said gently but firmly. Now you're someone from my past. A chapter that's closed. And that's okay. I don't hate you. I don't wish you harm. But I've built a new life. A life without people who see me as shameful. Tears rolled down her face. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. But that's your lesson to learn, not mine to fix. She nodded, understanding finally settling in. You're really okay, aren't you? You're actually happy. I'm more than okay, I said. I'm free. She left quietly. I watched her walk away, and I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just calm. That night, I sat on the balcony of my small apartment and looked at the city lights below. I'd come so far from that bench where Thomas first found me. So far from that storage shed where my family made me sleep. I pulled out my phone and looked at my business account. Enough for a down payment on land. It's time, I said to the night. Tomorrow, I would start looking for property. Tomorrow, I would take the next step. But tonight, I would just sit here and appreciate how far I'd come. From prisoner to outcast to business owner. From broken to unbreakable. They say success is the best revenge, but that's not quite right. Success isn't about revenge at all. It's about becoming so complete that the people who rejected you become irrelevant to your story. I found my land on a quiet hillside overlooking Manchester. 2 acres of possibility. The real estate agent tried to upsell me on bigger properties, fancier locations. This is perfect, I told her. It's modest, she said carefully. Exactly, I replied. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm building something real. I bought it outright. No mortgage. Cash saved over 4 years of disciplined living. When the deed came through with my name on it, I sat in my car and cried. Not sad tears. Grateful tears. Phoenix Rising continued growing. We took on commercial projects now. Small office renovations. Restaurant remodels. Nothing enormous, but solid, consistent work. I hired more people, but carefully. I looked for the overlooked ones. The ones with something to prove. A single mother who couldn't find childcare-friendly hours. A recovering addict who needed a second chance. A young man fresh out of the care system. Why do you hire people like us? The single mother, whose name was Rachel, asked one day. Because I know what it's like to be written off, I said. And because being underestimated is fuel if you use it right. My team wasn't just employees. We became something like family. The real kind. The kind that shows up when things get hard. When Rachel's childcare fell through, we adjusted schedules. When the young man from care, Tommy, needed help finding housing, I connected him with resources. When our recovering addict, David, struggled, we supported him without judgment. This isn't normal, David said one day. Most bosses don't care like this. Most bosses weren't where we've been, I replied. I started a small program through Phoenix Rising. We'd take on young people from difficult backgrounds, teach them trades, help them build careers. No experience necessary. Just willingness to work hard. The program grew. Local charities noticed. Newspapers wrote articles about the ex-con turned entrepreneur who's changing lives. I didn't do it for publicity. I did it because I remembered being that person with no options, no support, no hope. If I could change that for even one person, my own suffering would mean something. One afternoon, I received an invitation to speak at a community center about second chances and rehabilitation. I almost declined. Public speaking terrified me. But Thomas, now quite elderly, encouraged me. Your story needs telling, he said. Not for you. For everyone still sitting on that bench, thinking life is over. So I went. The room was packed. Young people. Former offenders. Struggling families. People who looked exactly like I had years ago. Desperate but determined. I stood at that podium, hands shaking, and I told them the truth. My name is Daniel. 6 years ago, I walked out of prison to a family that rejected me. I slept on benches. I had nothing. People said I'd never amount to anything. That my life was over at 24 years old. I paused, looking at their faces. They were listening. Really listening. But here's what I learned. The opinions of people who gave up on you don't define your future. Your response to rejection defines your future. When my family called me a disgrace, I had two choices. Believe them or prove them wrong. I chose to prove them wrong. Not to change their minds, but to change my own life. After the talk, people lined up to speak with me, to shake my hand, to tell me their stories. One young man, maybe 19, said, I just got out 2 months ago. My family won't talk to me. I don't know what to do. I gave him my business card. Come to my office Monday. We'll find you work. That young man, Christopher, is now one of my best workers. Fast forward to today, and he's studying for his contractor's license. Success brought unexpected challenges too. Competitors spread rumors. Phoenix Rising only hires criminals. Daniel's just a con man with a business license. Instead of fighting back, I doubled down on quality. Let the work speak. Let the results silence the critics. One major contractor who'd been spreading rumors lost a client to us. The client told me why they switched. He talked badly about you. That told me everything about his character. Your work told me everything about yours. By year 5, Phoenix Rising had 20 employees and annual revenue I never dreamed possible. But I still drove the same used van. Still lived simply. Still saved aggressively. Why don't you upgrade? Rachel asked. You can afford it. Because I remember what it's like to have nothing, I said. The moment I forget that, I lose what made me. I broke ground on my property. Not a mansion. A simple, solid house. 3 bedrooms. Open kitchen. Large windows overlooking the valley. And a workshop, because I still loved working with my hands. During construction, using my own crew, something beautiful happened. We weren't just building a house. We were building proof. Proof that broken beginnings don't determine endings. Thomas came to visit the construction site. He was using a cane now, moving slowly, but his mind was sharp as ever. You did it, he said, surveying the foundation we'd poured. We did it, I corrected. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. No, Thomas shook his head. I just reminded you of what was already there. You did the work. You made the choices. You became this. That evening, as the crew packed up, I stood alone on my land. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. My house was taking shape. My business was thriving. My life was mine. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Patricia, your mother. I heard you're doing well. Can we talk? I stared at that message for a long time. 6 years ago, it would have broken me. 3 years ago, it would have angered me. Now it just seemed sad. I typed a response, I wish you well, but that chapter is closed. Take care. And I deleted her number. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. Not from anger, but from wisdom. That night, I slept peacefully in my small apartment, knowing tomorrow I'd wake up and continue building. Not just a house. Not just a business. But a legacy of second chances. The final chapter of any story isn't about endings. It's about understanding. Understanding what the journey meant. What the pain taught you. What you became because of it all. My house was completed in the spring. I'll never forget the day I got the keys. Not from a landlord or a seller, but from my own contractor. Because I'd built it. My crew and I had literally built my home with our own hands. We had a small gathering to celebrate. My employees brought their families. Thomas came, smiling but tired. Even George showed up, retired now but proud. Remember when you couldn't lift a brick without wincing? George laughed. Remember when you took a chance on a desperate ex-con? I replied. Best decision I ever made, he said seriously. Standing in my finished home, surrounded by people who'd become my real family, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete. Not perfect. Not without scars. But complete. Phoenix Rising outgrew its small office. We moved into a proper facility with a training center for our apprenticeship program. We'd helped 43 young people start careers in the trades. 43 lives given second chances. One afternoon, I received another unexpected visitor. Leonard, my father. He looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. Daniel, he said at the gate. Can I come in? I could have said no. Part of me wanted to. But I let him in. We sat on my porch. The silence was heavy, filled with years of hurt. Your mother told me you didn't want to talk, he began. I didn't, I confirmed. I understand. I needed to see you. To see what you've built. He looked around at my property, my home, the Phoenix Rising van parked in the drive. We were wrong, Daniel. So wrong. Yes, you were, I said simply. Can you forgive me? He asked. I thought about that question carefully. Dad, I forgave you years ago. Not because you deserved it, but because carrying anger was exhausting. But forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't rebuild what was broken. I know, he said quietly. Natalie told me about seeing you years back. She said you were kind but firm. I hoped maybe. No, I interrupted gently. There's no maybe. I'm not angry. I don't wish you harm. But we're not family anymore. Not in the way that matters. He nodded, tears in his eyes. You've become an incredible man. Better than I ever was. I became who I needed to be, I said. Despite what happened, not because of it. He left shortly after. I watched him walk to his car, shoulders slumped, carrying the weight of his choices. I felt sympathy but not obligation. Peace but not connection. Thomas passed away that autumn. Peacefully, in his sleep, the way he'd hoped. At his funeral, I spoke about the old man who'd seen potential in a broken young man on a bench. Who'd taught me that loss could be freedom. Who'd believed in me before I believed in myself. He saved my life, I told the small gathering. Not by rescuing me, but by reminding me I could save myself. In Thomas's will, he'd left me a letter. I read it alone in my workshop. Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't be sad. I lived fully. But I want you to know something. That day I met you on the bench, I almost walked past. I was tired. It was cold. But something told me to stop. I'm glad I listened. Watching you rise from nothing to something extraordinary has been the greatest gift of my final years. You didn't just rebuild your life. You rebuilt your soul. That's rare. Stay true to who you've become. Help others the way you wished someone had helped you. And remember, your past doesn't define you. Your choices do. Keep choosing courage. Keep choosing growth. Keep choosing to be extraordinary. Thomas. I framed that letter and hung it in my office. Phoenix Rising celebrated its 10th anniversary. From one desperate man with a plastic bag to a company with 60 employees and annual revenue in the millions. But the numbers weren't what mattered. What mattered were the stories. Tommy, who started as a scared kid from care, now ran his own small renovation business. Rachel, the single mother, became our operations manager. Christopher, the young man who came to us lost and afraid, was now training others. At the anniversary celebration, I gave a speech to my team. 10 years ago, I was rejected by everyone I loved. I had nothing. I was nothing, according to them. But you know what? They were wrong. And if you're here because someone said you'd never make it, because someone gave up on you, because the world counted you out, then they were wrong about you too. I looked around at faces that reflected my own journey. Struggle. Determination. Victory. This company isn't just about construction. It's about reconstruction. Rebuilding buildings, yes. But more importantly, rebuilding lives. Rebuilding confidence. Rebuilding hope. Every one of you is proof that second chances matter. That past mistakes don't determine future success. That being counted out just means you get to prove them wrong. The applause was thunderous. Not for me. For all of us. For every second chance that became a success story. Later that night, alone in my home, I opened my old prison notebook. I'd kept it all these years. I read the letters I'd written but never sent. The desperate pleas for understanding. The promises I'd made to myself. The dreams that seemed impossible. Then I opened a new notebook and wrote just one sentence. The boy who walked out of prison hoping for acceptance became a man who built his own approval. I closed the notebook and looked out at the city lights below. Somewhere out there, someone was sitting on a bench feeling hopeless. Someone was being rejected by family. Someone was being told they'd never amount to anything. And I hoped somehow this story would reach them. That they'd know what I know now. Rejection isn't the end. It's often the beginning. The beginning of discovering you're stronger than you knew. More capable than they said. More worthy than they believed. My name is Daniel. I gave up 3 years of my life for people who rejected me. But in losing them, I found myself. And that was worth everything. If my story touched your heart, please share it. Because somewhere, someone needs to hear that they too can rise from the ashes. They too can turn pain into purpose. They too can become unbreakable. Thank you for listening. Now go out there and prove them wrong.